Hello believers, hope you're well. This is a podcast where we speak to creative folk about what they do, how they think and what they think of the X-Files. Just walking through the park near where I live. I'll just stop and watch the bowls. No interest in bowls. Not that vintage yet. And there's also a cricket match going on. No interest in that either. But what I am interested in is going to see some new work from former podcast guest Emma McLeod. She's got a show on with some other interesting artists at the Coburg Studios in Leith. That's on until I think next weekend, so if you're around, do pop down to that. It's called Misshapen Narratives, Stories of Play and Metamorphosis. Interested to see what Emma's created. As well as being excited about that, I'm also very excited about the new series of this podcast. We'll be taking a break for a bit after this episode and back around July with a whole host of brilliant guests, parapsychologists, tornado historians, Michelin-starred chefs, filmmakers, acclaimed stand-up comedians, the lot. Also, it's a great season of the X-Files. I do forget sometimes that this podcast is supposed to be about the X-Files. It's a banger of a season in both respects. That bird agrees. Before we get around to that though, we're ending season 1 on a high point with a chat with head of cinema events and musician Michael Garrad. Michael was assistant manager at London's much-loved Close-Up Film Centre before becoming head of events at Curzon Cinemas. And alongside that, he's the guitarist in the band Chips for the Poor, who have appeared on Mark Riley's BBC Six music show, no less. Michael also has a disconcerting number of copies of Ulysses by James Joyce. Didn't really get into chatting about that, sadly. Michael talks about loving the band The Fall, the lack of solidarity between alternative culture crowds, tricky jazz chords, changing cinema audiences, and we get on to speaking about X-Files Season 1, Episode 24, The Erlenmeyer Flask. Leave me a message, subscribe, review, wherever you get your podcasts. Drop me a line, believemepod@gmail.com, and follow us on X. It's definitely called X now. Now going back to Twitter, Instagram and YouTube. Thanks for everyone who's joined me on this peculiar journey so far. Hope you got a lot out of the chats with the guests and my daft ramblings. Might be some changes in the new series coming up, but we'll obviously get onto that when we get into the series. But for now, here's Michael, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So our daughter's starting school in September. So she was an August baby. So we've been through the sort of the application for schools, and So we've had to write this application for the better school in the area,
yes.
And yeah. So she's only she's a summer baby. So if she was born 2 weeks later, we wouldn't be worrying about any of this until next year.
What's she into then, Michael? Is she chip off the old block in terms of music? Do you playing music around the house? Is she into that?
She likes Bjork in the car. Bjork's first album in the car. Yeah. So yes, that's good. We listen to the Hey Dougie album a lot, which is actually quite good. Do you know Hey Dougie?
Oh, the dog. Yes, he's a dog, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a sort of like a scout sort of thing, but with we're heavily into that. Some of the music on that, but she's moved on from that now. She's very much into the Toy Story movies at the moment, so that's good.
Right.
Toy Story 1, 2, 3, and we go to the charity shops near us and buy DVDs for like £1 each. So so we've got a good selection of
Oh, that's nice. Is that?
yeah.
Do you get enjoyment out of that in terms of retro media? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like rather than having a sort of streaming service, it's like the act of going into a shop and buying something that you can then take home and put on. It's quite quaint now, isn't it? But I really like
yeah,
that.
yeah. It's I'm not we listen to records a lot at home. So I guess we've always been a physical media family. But I'm not. Yeah, I think it's the bargain hunting is also
Yeah.
also is a leisure activity in itself.
And are you finding time to play any music at the minute? And does as Frances does she seen you playing the guitar and how she sort of responded to that?
Yeah, I don't play a lot. I've been trying to work out You Got a Friend in Me from the Toy Story soundtrack, which is extremely hard to play. And
Yeah.
it involves chords such as G augmented and
Oh, Randy, come on.
E flat minus seventh diminished. Which I think is a bit cheeky, really. I think when I was looking that up, I was thinking, oh, great, yeah, it'll probably just be C and G, and so no, I don't get to play as much as I used to, but I was just playing on Francis's ukulele, and I was trying to work out Death Valley 69 by Sonic Youth on ukulele.
Lovely.
Yeah, I think I'm going to start a Sonic Youth ukulele tribute band called Sonic Uke. Uh,
Superb.
yeah.
That is superb. You've just reminded
So,
me of. I've got some friends who from Sheffield, and they were in a band and they supported Sonic Youth in Manchester, and they were sort of kind of free noise sort of collective, hitting wocks and that sort of thing, and they went down like a lead balloon. And because it was like 45 minutes of drone noise, and afterwards someone made a video with their kids and their kids' mates, 4-year-old children, basically just hitting stuff around the house and uploaded it going, this is the new gig from the Hunter Gratchis. And it was like,
amazing.
oh God, you could, I don't think they ever got over that. I was like, oh, well, at least someone's got something out of it.
It might have maybe they were supporting when I saw Sonic Youth in Brixton Academy about best part of 20 years ago. And
Right.
they played, and I was really surprised how badly it went down because I thought people would be this was exactly what people would have been paying their Sonic Youth ticket to see such a support group. But yeah, I there was a lot of heckling and people. I was there on my own, and people around me were sort of trying to corral me into joining the heckling, and but I
Oh,
resisted.
boo.
I resisted.
Yeah.
I was on the side of the band.
It never sort
Mm.
of like it always amazes me that there's no sort of kinsmanship between the alternative, because I went to Ultimo's parties one year and
Mm.
Neil Hamburger was on, the kind of odd comedian who's a sort of
Ah.
his catch he tells really dirty jokes, and then it's
Mm.
an act, and he says, but that's my life, and he's got big glasses, and it's
Mm.
these he coughs a lot, and he got booed off, and I'm sure that's part of it, that he wants that sort of thing, but people were like, get him off,
Mm.
this is shit, and I was like, you must have a basic idea of who Neil Hamburger, you must like know who Tim and Eric are, but they were
Mm.
just, I don't know, it really like blew my mind that they could sit through, I don't know who was on
Mares Bay.
Mogwai or
Yeah.
something like that, and then
And they couldn't.
just not tolerate this.
I think, it's very strange. I used to get to see The Fall, and
Mm.
I think there's Marky Smith would have supporting. There was for ages he had supporting this guy that would loop like half a second of a DVD of a rock band playing, and he'd do it such a way that it looked like the singer was being very suggestive with the microphone, and then because it was such a short amount of time that it was sort of on a ping pong, it would become like a drone, and then he'd put like some like really like horrendous beat over the top of it, and the Fall fans used to get so wound up. But he would book support acts specifically to wind up the audience. Because then by
Good,
the time
yeah.
the Fall came on, you know, they were really pumped. I saw Ted Chippington support the
Oh,
Fall once.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and that was at the Hammersmith Apollo, not the smaller Hammersmith venue, and that was great. I remember reading, and this was a while ago. This was when you could still smoke inside venues. Someone writing online that they saw people actually flicking like lit fags at Ted Chippington. So once they hadn't even finished smoking, yeah,
I love that sort of image of, that's the sort of thing you'd probably do to Gigi Allen, and you've got poor old
mm,
Ted Chippington
yeah,
just
yeah,
chopping
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. He seemed to be quite up for it though. I think he knew what his role was. I can remember. I remember some of the jokes. I was walking down the street and I saw a woman hanging out the laundry. Just remember that next time you take your laundry home for your mum to do, and that was it. It was. Obviously, he
Uh,
told it much better than that. But yeah, that was a really
Superb.
great, great live music moment. Yeah.
That's brilliant. So
Hmm.
when did you get into the Fall then? Because I guess that's a sort of, that like a pivotal band for you, isn't it?
Hmm.
And what was the sort of initial feeling when you heard their music, and what did it sort of spark inside you? I nearly sounded like Marie Kondo then, or whatever her name is, but yeah, how did that journey begin, and when did you first hear their music?
So I listened to when I was a teenager. I listened to a lot of Radio One, and in 1995 there was a live concert of The Fall on Radio One, and I can remember John Peel introducing it, saying, "I love everything The Fall does," and blah 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 blah. And then I heard this gig, and I just thought it was just like the most unbelievable mess I'd ever heard. And you know, I was like, what is John Peel talking about? And at the time, The Fall were promoting their album Cerebral Caustic, which is a pretty mediocre Fall album, to be honest. So maybe I had a correct impression. But then I was reading more about it in the music press, and I used to, you know, read the Enemy, you know, and believe every word that it said.
Yeah.
And a live album came out called The 27 Points, which had got, I don't know, about 40 tracks on it, I think, or 30 tracks, and it was a double CD. And for some reason, I thought this is my entrance point to The Fall, and so I got this for like my birthday or something, and it was quite a struggle to listen to. At that time, I'd you know, on a paperboy's wages was quite you know, you bought an album and you had to like it, you know, you
Yeah.
had, yeah, you had to kind of really listen to it again and again. And I think that it was that kind of broke me into it. It's not a album for the faint-hearted or it's not really a good entry level Fall. It's got them walking off stage halfway through a song. It's got you know, that's what made the live album. Most groups would
Yeah.
have like the perfect rendition, and they've got Marquis Smith shouting at the sound man saying, "Hey Rex, you better sort this out," or what, you know, and then they walk off, and then they come back on again, and then they play the same song, and it's got, you know, someone telling like jokes about Frank Zappa or something like that. I mean, it's and the people heckling and all kinds of things. Yeah, very confrontational and strange.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I think then I heard a song called Spoilt Victorian Child, which I also taped off the radio, and that really hooked me. And then I think I made a conscious decision to make them my favourite band. So I bought the albums, and I can remember people thinking that was quite a strange thing for a teenager to do, force themselves into that world. But yeah, it was a world I kind of stuck with for a long time.
Yeah, you're so right though about that. Like, well, I bought this album with my own fair money,
Mm.
and I'll be damned if I can't enjoy it, and I'm going to will myself to enjoy it. And I had the same thing where I think I said also John Peel.
Mm.
I'd sent off for like an early Melt Banana album, a Japanese
Mm.
punk act,
Mm.
and because he said they're the best band on the planet,
Mm.
he obviously loved the Fall and them, and it took 8 weeks to come from like I'm assuming Japan, and I go into Hobson's, I think was the music shop in
Oh.
Chesterfield,
Mhm.
every weekend and say,
Wow.
I don't know why I didn't phone, but I said, is it coming yet? No, it's not coming yet. And then it came, and it got all the Japanese writing on the front of it, and it's great cellophane. Got it home, took it off, banged it on, listened to it. Dog shit, absolute dog shit, right? And I was like, this is just, because you know what they're like. It's like at the time, it's before they went slightly more pop. It's like blast beat drumming, and you've got the singer screaming in Japanese, and then you've got this really wild effects laden guitar going on all over it. And it just sounded like such a mess. But then you sort of, and with more and more listens, you go, oh, there's a guitar line here, and she's singing something funnier there, and I really have to give it the time.
I guess from my like radio listening days, because I used to listen kind of all the time to Radio One. I used to tape it, tape the Mark Radcliffe's show at 10 o'clock, and then listen to it on my paper round the following day.
Yes.
Yeah, and one of the most like I think one of the more like pivotal moments for me was I was listening back to the recording from the night before, and Mark Radcliffe introduced a song by the Gang of Four, and just said Gang of Four, and then it played the song, which I think had been recently reissued at that point from the Entertainment album Damaged Goods, and at the end they went straight into another track, which was this instrumental piece of music, and my tape ran out halfway through this instrumental piece. So I was kind of hoping that it was like part of the same Gang of Four song, but when I got the CD of Gang of Four, I was very pleased with it, but it didn't include this instrumental thing. And then for years I was trying to find out what it was, and because it was instrumental, once I got access to the internet, I couldn't Google it. Post-punk instrumental songs sort of came up with all kinds of irrelevant material. It was only years later when we're talking like from when I was 15 to when I was like about 31 that I got given a CD mix by DJ Cherry Stones, and it included that song on it, like way into the mix. And so so that was that resolved that. But it was that was something that I'd always remembered and always was a really important piece of music to me, but I never knew what it was. It was a track called You're Dragging Feet by Polyrock, which was like a new wave group from New York. Yeah, that was produced by Philip Glass.
Oh right, wow.
So, and he plays keyboards on the track.
So at what point did you start playing music then? And was it like, I need to get a guitar, I need to start emulating what this out there band from Manchester do, or was it more of a gradual thing where you met people who all liked that style of music and you thought, well, that's obviously the style of music we're going to start playing?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was Nirvana really, and I think quite because I used to just listen to like Guns N' Roses and so on, and then and I'd play computer games, and I used to listen to Radio 1, and I think at some point I graduated from Steve Wright in the afternoon to the evening programs, the evening session, and so on, and then getting and listening to Nirvana, and that was kind of, I guess, my first like a door to any sort of alternative culture. Of course, Nirvana are like the biggest, as big as like the Beatles or whatever. But you know what I mean. You kind of go from Nirvana, and then you could go to something quite mainstream, or you could go to the Butthole Surfers.
Yes,
It's like a
right.
straight thing. And anyways, but yeah, before developing, before I even really had heard the Fall, it was Nirvana, and then I probably got a guitar for my 15th birthday, or 14th or 15th birthday, and then then it kind of went from there. And quite like, I probably had quite mainstream taste for a long time, and probably then in my early 20s, that was when I started meeting people, and when I moved to London and started listening to Resonance FM, and
Right.
I used to volunteer at Resonance FM, and that really kind of broadened and sort of solidified like my musical taste. Resonance FM. I met all these groups and other people, and was able to collaborate with other people, and I'd not really I'd always just done music on my own until that point, really.
Is there that kind of? Because I mean, I'm just thinking back to like 15 years ago. When I was
Mm.
playing music, and is there still as much of a thriving DIY kind of scene in the UK for for those sort of noisier bands and punk bands? And I don't, because I just don't know. I don't get out to gigs enough to find out. And is it something that's still, I remember back in the day, like promoters like Upset the Rhythm would be putting gigs on
Mm.
every weekend, and it'd be in like a warehouse in Peckham somewhere, or there was still a thriving kind of guitar scene, and I say guitar scene, and I mean,
Mm.
punk, punk and riot girl
Mm.
bands and that sort of thing.
Mm.
But is there much of that still going on now, or is it all gone to, is it more the kids? Are they
Mm.
more? Is it more a bedroom sort of thing?
I don't know, because I tend to take any chance of getting sleep that I
Mm,
can now. But I think I should I should think it's still happening. I think that maybe some of the venues have changed. I mean, Upset the Rhythm is still going strong. It
right.
seems to have more gigs than ever. I think it's very hard to do what they do, and thank goodness they do it,
Yeah.
because I don't know who else would. I think Baba Yaga's Hut still does events, and I think that I wouldn't know the venues that people use, but I think the Windmill in Brixton is still going
Yes.
strong,
Right.
and some of the venues have gone. There was power lunches in Haggerston that was really amazing,
Mm.
but I'm sure new ones pop up. I'm hopeful that the tradition continues.
And where does when did you become, and do you class yourself, and I presume you do, as a cineast? When did that did cinema and love of cinema and music happen at the same time, organically, or were you into films before music, or did it just sort of evolve as you were getting into cool punk stuff, and that led to punk films and what have you?
I think I guess my first kind of contact with movies, again, like like actually, I mean, one of the things on the radio, I can remember Mark Kermode being on the radio and talking about films, in the 90s and
Mm,
on these Radio 1 programs that when, when you not got the internet or, I was in the middle of Essex, you'd not got something interesting on your doorstep, Radio 1 was really a total gateway to a multitude of things. I mean,
mm.
I don't know if it has that significance now, but I don't know if it needs to. I think it probably needs to be distinctive from whatever else is out there. But I think I can remember hearing Mark Kermode talking about film and thinking I'd never heard anyone talk about film like that before. I'd
Right.
kind of, the South End Odeon would play the mainstream films, and that was what I knew film to be. And it was only about that time, that I'd watch the movies on BBC Two or Channel 4 that were on later in the evening, and I think probably the one that infuriated me as much as it was like fascinating was Weekend by John Luke Goddard,
Right.
and the really the traffic jam scene in that was like what I had no idea that someone could do that.
Sure, yeah.
When I started working in film, that was really when I started working at Close Up on Sclater Street. But that when I worked there was a video shop on Brick Lane,
Yeah.
and I'd done DIY gigs and so on, and I talked to the owner of the shop, and he was doing screenings at the Working Men's Club in Bethnal Green, and so I talked to him about that and that he was doing them regularly, and so I kind of asked if he had a job going, with a view to sort of like doing those kind of events as doing it just in my spare time. So
Mm.
that was how I got into film, and then my current job, which is in cinema events.
Yeah, because that's how we first met. Is I used to live at the top of Brick Lane with
Mm.
former guest of the show, friend of the show, Trixie Malicious, and I just coming from Chesterfield in Derbyshire. I knew the Blockbuster video. I imagine that maybe in Sheffield there might have been. There's probably a FOP, but there certainly wasn't. A, a rental place which would
Mm.
stock the type and range of films that Close Up did. So
Mm.
just walking down Brick Lane and going in there, which was dark and and just the people you'd meet when you're in there, including yourself. And you'd go downstairs and like the music stuff was downstairs, so it was like I must have rented that Fugazi Instrument documentary
Oh yeah,
three or four times,
yeah,
and
yeah,
because I
yeah.
think you recommended it, because
Ah,
I'd watched another doc and I'd said what's like this, and you said you should watch that Fugazi doc, and then that's just the drummer's got the cymbal and and everybody sat down, but it's still like the hardest gig you've ever watched in your life. Just great, just
mm,
really, really good. So yeah, I've felt really lucky to, I would have
mm,
moved in there if they would have let me, and I'm glad it's still like it's moved around the corner. It's a cinema in its own right, and there's lots of events going on. So yeah, it was a kind of. I imagine that it had, quite a loved place to a lot of people,
mm.
and it's probably had kind of an influential part of a lot of people's, life who now work in cinema. So you are now events manager for Curzon
Yeah.
Cinemas. Have you noticed a change in your job since you started doing that job? Have you noticed a change in the type of audiences that want to come out to
Mm.
event cinema, and are you putting on different events now more regularly than you did in the past? Or I'm just interested to know sort of any
Mm.
changes in audience kind of habits that you might have noticed.
Yeah, I think so. I started in Curzon just over 10 years ago, and I've been doing my present job, like managing the events program and booking the films for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years or so. And the pandemic has been, things have changed significantly, I think, since the pandemic. Immediate post-pandemic era was, or kind of during pandemic era, because we had moments when we were reopened. Events were, characterized by having maybe a limited number of tickets that you could sell, and having strict kind of protocols about how you handled microphones and passed them around, and
Right.
sanitizing them and things like that. That was part of what was kind of visible, but there was a difficulty in getting audiences to become confident in returning to the cinema. I think what's really done, a lot of, and I think as well, because Curzon runs for cinemas in the West End, which is quite unlike any other circuit. We did start seeing the West End, I think partly from because of working from home. The the West End of London was suffering because people were staying at home, and watching films in their local cinemas. So I think that the events over the past couple of years, events have started to become really important, because they where you've got something unique. So if you've got a movie and it's playing in your suburban or outside of London cinema, you'll just go to your local cinema. But if you've got something to draw you into the West End, it has to be something really exclusive to bring you in. But when you've got that, then people will really have an appetite for it. And with things like festivals, and we work with a number of festivals, the London Film Festival for one, also Rain Dance, London Short Film Festival, UK Jewish Film Festival, Venice Film Festival brings some films from Venice. We did a London
Right.
Palestine Film Festival, Ukrainian Film Festival, and others. They've really had very strong admissions, and stronger, in fact, than pre-pandemic times, which is really encouraging. Especially those festivals that are supporting younger talent, such as London Short Film Festival and Rain Dance, or independent movies. So so that's definitely been, I think people will search out unique opportunities to see a movie on the big screen.
That's great. Well, that's great. That's really encouraging to hear. And
Mm.
yeah, I've noticed the same up here in Scotland. Like, I don't think there's anything better than being in a cinema surrounded by people, or
Mm.
experiencing something at the same time. I think it's fantastic. This is in the US. So this is 8.3 million households turned in to the initial broadcast of the finale of season 1 of the X-Files. Season 1, episode 24,
Yeah.
entitled The Erlenmeyer Flask, or Conical Flask,
Mm.
if you want to put it a different way. What did you think to this piece of television, Michael?
So I felt very honoured that you'd selected for me the climax of season 1 of the X-Files, because this was, I realised as I was watching it, this is a big episode.
Mm.
What I watched the X-Files when it was first on, from when it was first on for the first few series, or first few seasons,
Yeah.
until I think probably I started discovering drink, and and so on.
Yeah.
But I think yeah, it was really remarkable to see it again. What I noticed immediately, after the iconic title sequence, is that this episode opens with a car chase.
Oh, yes.
And not only is it a car chase, the first thing you see is the one and then two cars jumping over like a ramp. So I mean, if you kind of think of this was a quite serious entertainment for 1994,
Yeah.
and open with something quite like in your face as a car chase. I was very excited. I also was really impressed at how efficient it was. So much
Yeah.
happens, and I'm sure the it just zips along so quickly. I'm sure they could have made a 2-hour special out of this, but no, it's really packed to the 45
Yeah,
minutes.
they've got a lot to get through
Yeah.
as well to sort of to wrap up
Mm,
things, and also leave a few open ended bits for. Was it going to be a season 2? Presumably, it would have been commissioned at the time. But yeah,
mm,
really good that it starts with that car chase, and you've got these police officers chasing someone in a car through the Docklands, and this person gets out. And then sort of starts getting battered by the police with truncheons, but then turns those truncheons on the police officers, fights
mm,
back, legs it, gets tased in the back, no
mm,
effect on the
mm,
poor
mm,
person. Then he gets shot in the back several times. Then he jumps in the water, and all we see, these two police officers look down. There's kind of like green substance. Is it green blood? We don't know. And then,
mm,
like you say, we get the iconic title sequence. But yeah, where to start with this? I mean, great. Straight after the opening credits, you've got a police officer actively saying the word "Silence of the Lambs," which is great because that's one of the touch points that Chris Carter said when he was setting up the X-Files. It's going to be like "Silence of the Lambs" meets Close Encounters. So you've got him making that. You've got. I wondered if you knew what the film was that Mulder was watching, because I was trying to figure it out, but I don't know. I thought, well,
No.
that must like have some kind of reference to what the plot is, but I couldn't find it online anywhere.
I think so. They're searching for the alien, and then there's an Apocalypse Now reference when he pokes his head out of the water.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of like a lot of really great visuals in this. You know, you've got the narrative going on, and we've got to wrap it up. But you've got, they really spend time to create some lasting images that are going to stick with you. You've got that great shot of him coming out the water after a long period. You've got later on Mulder stumbles upon this warehouse, which is filled with bodies in tanks of liquid, which is just
that's amazing because it's only on screen for quite a very short period of time, and then it's all disappeared, and that's quite striking.
and then when Scully gets to see this alien fetus, that's such a great shot as well, and none of it's it could all be really laughable and really silly, but because I guess you started with that car chase, you're hooked by it. So anything that they kind of throw in front of you, and I always say that the cast are great in the X-Files and they really sell it, but you get to this Scully pulling out a frozen alien fetus, and it's like, oh my god, there's a real level of jeopardy involved in the whole thing. But yeah, I love this episode, and it was sad to say the demise of Deep Throat himself. Quite shocking, his ultimate demise in it, and but he was kind of, he was losing it a bit. He come out with some quite choice quotes in this. He was like, "You've never been closer," He never really fills them in. It's like, no, come on, you've got to make your own. It's like kids, isn't it? You don't want to give them too much. It's like, make your own way. Come on, guys. And then there's another who's like, Scully, you work so hard, but you still do not see. And I was really crying laughing at that. I was like, well done. And then you've got a load of monkeys. Love those monkeys.
I mean, I think overall it's kind of it's interesting to look at it and then to look at it now and to kind of think that I guess the creators of of the X-Files would have grown up with in the shadow of the Kennedy assassination, the Vietnam
Mm.
War, and the Watergate scandal. And obviously Deep Throat comes straight out of All the President's Men.
Yeah.
And I think just the way that we kind of thought of conspiracy then, and how conspiracy is such a political has such political currency today, which is very strange, because I kind of feel in the 90s it still felt somehow like a, a little more distant from everyday life. I think
Right.
it's great for telly, and when it happens in real life, it's so kind of shocking. But the kind of the tropes of conspiracy are exploited today for all kinds of strange things. So I live right on the very edge of Greater London, and
Mm.
there's a big thing in my area is sort of ULEZ
Right.
expansion, uh, opposition to ULEZ expansion, which is the ultra low emission zone. So older cars have to pay a charge, and it's really just about pollution, but it's kind of been elevated in people's minds into all kinds of things. I saw a car recently that had got a sticker over its number plate in such a way as to sort of obscure one of the digits so that the cameras couldn't recognize it. And
Right.
it said on the sticker, it said, the only carbon they're trying to cancel is you. Uh,
I mean, I
and
shouldn't
then it,
laugh, should you? Because it's like
no,
people think
but
this.
then it had there was like a skull. And then instead of a crossbones, it had got two crossed syringes.
Oh
So
no.
so it was kind of the amount of conspiracy that was condensed into this one
Yes.
sticker was
Right.
was quite extraordinary. But it's I mean, we've had there was a car parked across our road recently that had got all kinds of anti-Sadiq Khan things on it, and where there was a big protest at the in the town. So it's Orpington. We live near Orpington, and there was cars there, and lots of people with placards really against this. Our local MP is into it as well, and
Oh
it's quite
no.
the way it's just how like conspiracy as a there's real conspiracies like Watergate, and there's we can make it into great entertainment in the X-Files, and we can always be suspicious of governments. And then there's these kind of new, I don't know if this is new, but like fantasy conspiracies that are such a part of political dialogue at the moment.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's like the tagline of the episode says. We don't get the truth is out there. We get trust no one, and I
Yeah.
guess some people have really taken that to heart. Sadly. Yeah, I guess just a couple more things just to say on this
Mm.
before we wrap up. I mean, I really did like that we'd gone full circle with the first season, and this episode ends with the smoking man storing the evidence, the alien fetus, in somewhere in
Yeah.
the Pentagon, that mirroring the ending of the first episode. I really liked
I
that.
really, yeah. Mm.
And I was reading up about the kind of inception of the episode, and Chris Carter talked about one of the facets of the episode is that the person who goes into the water, I can't remember his name off the top of my head now. He's who comes out of the water again. Who's had he's been gene therapized to have some alien genes inside him, and if his body gets cut in any way, then he releases this toxic odor, which Mulder sort of inhales at one point, and some people in an ambulance do. And that was actually inspired by a real life case of a lady who was called Gloria Ramirez. She was, I think she got like dubbed the toxic woman by the media at some point because she was, I think she actually sadly got cancer and then started self-medicating and giving herself like dimethyl sulfate or something like that, and that basically turned her body toxic. So when she did pass out, did get taken to the ER, nurses and doctors who were trying to treat her started passing out and started having this kind of reactive shock to her body, and everyone thought it was some kind of mass hysteria. It's like, it's got nothing to do with this woman at all, but it turned out to have an actual chemical reaction to what the doctors and nurses were trying to do, pump her full of drugs to save her life, was actually interacting with what was going on in her body and creating this this kind of toxic fog around her. So I always like the fact that there's some element of truth gone into what the writers are doing. Whether it's like next season we get onto Fluke Man and like Chernobyl, and how audiences are interacting with media at the time. Again, we get onto season 2, and there's some shots inside a police car, out of a police car, that look like as if you're watching the show Cops, which must have been on at the time. Fly on the wall documentaries. There is in later series of the X-Files, there's like a fly on the wall like a documentary crew following around Mulder and Scully. So I always like the fact that it kind of keeps up to date with what's happening as well. I guess just to keep audiences engaged, because essentially it's pretty much the same story every week. Mulder's going, you don't realise it's actually happening, and Scully's going, don't be so silly. There's a real life reason behind this. Are we going to kiss this episode? No, we're not going to kiss. We're going to wait another 3 seasons.
Yes, but then I guess it's continued up until there was a series in 2018. So that's kind of like at the peak of Trumpism. So have you got that far, or
not got that far yet? I mean, that's what I'm enjoying as well as talking to people. Is I'm enjoying this journey where it's like I vaguely remember tidbits of I remember Tombs, and I remember the black goo and out like Krychek turning up as a sort of devious other FBI agent, but the intricacies of how the narrative unfolds, I don't remember any of that at all. So I am really looking for, and I've not seen the new season, and I've been warned off seeing that new season, so I'm looking forward to getting to that and the 2 films. Do you think this will do you think you'll join me on the journey? Do you think you'll be watching any more X-Files if you get any time from?
I kind of feel like it did. What was amazing was I kind of feel like it did everything in that episode. Like, it brought me straight back into it, and I somehow in the dialogue it recapped everything I needed to know to be kind of up to speed. And then I did feel that I could drop it. I think I think when it comes to TV series, I spend a lot of my time watching Hey Dougie, and I think I'd really like to get to some of the intricacies of Peppa Pig, because there's that's kind of slowly revealing itself to me.
Bluey's the big boy. Yeah, that's serious.
Yeah, it's serious. I kind of
that's art house, but Bluey.
I just don't find it realistic. That's the thing. It's just the parents don't seem to work. Dougie, he's got his thing going on with the nursery, and so I can kind of sense it's got a grip on reality. But in Bluey, they got this amazing house.
Sure.
And, so there's I think I'm still doing the deep dive on kind of toddler TV at the moment. Maybe at some point when my daughter gets onto the X-Files, then I'll be back in there.
Amazing. And is there anything you've seen recently, that you could recommend? Doesn't have to be films or TV, art or books you've read. Any bands, music people should check out?
Actually, I'll tell you something I've just seen. It's the NT Live, National Theatre Live, with Andrew Scott in a production of Vanya as like a one-man show.
Oh,
and
right.
It's really extraordinary. I mean, I think it's kind of like an acting. It's like a, I want to say tour de force. I always nearly say Tour de France, but a tour de force of acting. It's he kind of goes between two, three, four different characters and various emotional states like on a pin.
Wow.
And and he's just in this one costume and is sort of signifying the different characters via really subtle gestures and expressions, and and it's kind of in a quite a strange sort of setting, a very sort of like, it's just got there's like a plastic garden chair on stage and like this rickety like little kitchen and a swing and things like that. It's kind of it's not quite Samuel Beckett, but it's its own, it's its own thing. It's got there's a mirror at the back of there's all these things that sort of coincide that have it's like it's got it's like there's a meaning that I can't quite grasp what it is, but it kind of makes sense on a like a an emotional level. It's really extraordinary. I think the professors will be able to write great essays on it.
Believe Me is written and edited by me, Chris Boyd, with production support from Steve Marshall. The music is by Johnny Boyle, and our logo is by Russ Brown. See you out there next time.